Histoire de père est un podcast sur la paternité. À chaque épisode, nous discutons avec un père de sa réalité de tous les jours. On en apprend sur son quotidien et sa vie familiale. Histoire de père, ça commence maintenant.
Bonjour et bienvenue à Histoire de père. Alors moi c'est Mardo.
Et moi c'est Gerry.
Alors aujourd'hui, nous avons la chance d'avoir un homme que je connais très bien, personnellement. Nos enfants vont à la même école ensemble, c'est un entrepreneur, un père impliqué dans la communauté. Alors sans hésiter, je vous présente M. Shiv Joshi.
Bonjour Mardo, Gerry, merci de m'avoir faire la visite ici aujourd'hui. C'est vraiment cool, votre format, puis j'espère qu'on va avoir une bonne conversation.
Thank you. So, Shiv, to start a conversation, obviously feel free to speak English or French. Put yourself comfortable.
Works.
Franglais works also. On aimerait savoir, who is Shiv?
That's a good question. You might want to ask everybody else. So I guess at the end of the day, first and foremost, I'm a dad to three boys. 9, 6, and 4, and wow, they're a lot, you know. But we get by, and at the end of the day, they're awesome. Getting to see their development and the weirdness and coolness of them is something that's really interesting. Aside from that, of course, husband for almost 15 years now. Entrepreneur, I currently own Greystone Premium Organic Teas here based out of Point Claire, and it's been 5 years. So that's been really, really interesting, trying to build up a family business from scratch, from something that I had no clue about 5 years ago. So it's been wild, busy days.
Good, good, thank you.
So, Shiv, donc tu as dit que tu as 3 garçons. Quelle a été ta réaction la première fois que tu es devenu papa?
Bien, la première fois, c'était vraiment excitant, tu sais, parce que on essayait. Tu sais, le premier, c'est un peu plus planifié que les restes. On sait, tu sais, puis c'était comme, on essayait, puis ça venait pas, puis on savait pas pourquoi. C'était pas comme au longtemps, comme il y a beaucoup de personnes qui souffrent de ça, qui travaillent vraiment fort là-dessus. Mais quand même, quand la journée là où ma femme a dit viens ici, tu sais, puis m'a fait rentrer à la salle de bain, puis elle a sorti le petit bâton, là, puis je dis, ça m'a pris peut-être une dizaine de secondes, puis elle était effrayée. Parce qu'on essayait, mais quand même, elle savait pas quelle serait ma réaction. Tu sais, puis là, quand j'ai finalement fait mon grand sourire, je lui ai donné, tu sais, un petit hug, puis on était comme, wow, OK, c'est du vrai maintenant, tu sais. Puis après ça, pour la pregnancy elle-même, tu sais, c'est plus sur la femme pour moi. Alors, j'étais là pour essayer, pour aider, mais c'est vraiment quand l'enfant sort, là, ça c'est un light switch. Tout change vraiment. Ils disent ça toujours, mais c'est du vrai, tu sais, c'est comme, boom, holy, wow, OK. Everything got real fast. You know, comme on dit.
It's funny that you say that because I do a lot of training in my work when it comes to those kind of topics, you know. And
yeah, of course, you're a big papa.
But all the man seems to say that like they didn't feel that they were becoming dad until they physically saw the baby, you know. That like even if, you know, they could feel the baby in the stomach or it's just they have to see it, you know. So that's something that we're.
Guys are like that to a certain extent too, man. You know what I mean? It needs to be tangible. Yeah. You need to touch it, feel it, understand it. To tell me some sort of, like my wife with like all our renos, she's like, I need an inspiration pic. And she needs that. That's how she puts together, and she does a great job. And then, but me, I'm just like, I don't know, color, this, put that there. Yeah, that works. Okay, fantastic, you know? So we're all wired, we're wired totally opposite, which is, I guess, why it kind of works.
That's true. That's true. So, tu l'as dit tantôt, t'es père de 3 garçons. Je pense que
oui.
t'as vraiment appuyé sur ça. En fait, t'es peut-être un garçon prêt d'avoir un starting five?
Ouais, la plupart, ouais, tu sais, puis c'est drôle, mais wow, c'est une équipe. Ouais. Pour le vrai, mais la chose la plus drôle, c'est que le plus jeune, c'est le capitaine de l'équipe. Nice. C'est lui qui le bosse. Il me parle comme c'est lui mon père. What you doing? Why are you doing that? You still in your pajamas? Like, c'est ça ma vie. Puis après ça, celui de 9 ans, lui, il est trop cool, il sait tout, tu sais. Oh non, you don't know how to do that? Like, c'est ça ma vie maintenant.
Mais tu sais, quand tu t'es imaginé ta famille, est-ce que tu t'étais imaginé peut-être que ça aurait pu être 3 garçons?
Non. Ah ben, on est 2 frères, moi puis mon frère déjà, tu sais, comme ça. Ma femme dit toujours, c'est impossible qu'on va avoir une fille. Votre famille, vous faites seulement des garçons. Puis jusqu'à maintenant, c'est pour ça qu'on a 3. Tu sais, elle voulait sa fille, comme ça on a essayé la 2e fois, garçon. Après ça, je dis c'est tout. Hein?
Ça, c'est fini, là? C'est for sure?
Puis après ça, au 3e, garçon, elle a dit, on va faire une autre shot. Je sais, je le file, ça va être une fille, tu sais. Garçon. Puis maintenant, je suis comme, elle sait, s'il y a un autre enfant, moi, je pars de l'avion à l'Inde.
S'il y a un autre enfant, je pars en Inde. Wow. Okay, you know your wife is going to watch this. Ben, c'est intéressant que tu dis ça parce que en même temps, c'est ça, tu es d'origine indienne. Et puis, je sais que dans ton background, tu as déjà travaillé aussi dans certains services par rapport à l'immigration. Est-ce que tu pourrais nous glisser un petit mot là-dessus?
Oui, j'ai travaillé pour la firme Campbell Cohen. C'est la firme d'immigration la plus large au Canada. Okay. Le propriétaire a décidé dans 95, I think, que l'Internet, ça va être très, très grand. Comme ça, il a mis tous ses ressources là-dedans. Puis, quand je suis rentré, on avait 20 personnes qui travaillaient là-dedans. On a agrandi ça à 110 personnes qui travaillent pour la firme maintenant. Puis, en plus que ça, le trafic, c'était l'équivalent de Pepsi. Parce que c'est le trafic mondial. Tout le monde veut venir au Canada. So it was crazy. So we would have incoming calls from immigrants from all over the world. You know, and I mean really, really sad calls too, like people suffering who, like, you could hear, like, they put together the money to make that phone call. Wow. And you know, there's, like, I'm not the immigration minister, you know, and then you had other people who were in much better situations, but looking for that move out. Like, a big part of our business was immigrants in the United States. These guys were so smart, it made me, like, blush almost. Like, you're talking about PhDs in neurophysics and masters in this and 14 years and published 9 times. And they're like, Shiv, please get me to Canada. Because they knew that the country they came from, the US, was probably never going to give them a green card. And Canada was their option to stay in North America. And above all else, they wanted, because these guys built lives. I'm not talking about a guy who showed up in the US 3 years ago. 9 years, 2 kids. Making $194,000 for Google or Microsoft or whatever, you know, or Oracle or at that time. But they knew that life was literally going to come to an end. And so we helped a lot of those guys come here, a lot of immigrants from India, China, other countries around the world, a lot of the French-speaking countries, because obviously Quebec puts a very, very strong emphasis on the language aspect. And so that was huge as well. So it was a very, very cool experience. I mean, for me, it's been weird. I've always somehow gravitated towards diversity. My first job ever was Hertz Rent-A-Car in the Dorval Airport. I rented cars. I got that job when I was 17. I wasn't even 18. I was the youngest person in Canada to work for the company. So much so I couldn't drive the cars. I could do customer service, but if somebody showed up with the car and you had to move it to the parking spot, I had a license, but they were only insured over 21. So I couldn't touch the car. So it was so weird. Wow. They'd be like, can you move? No. And they thought I was being bougie, like, I don't touch cars. They gave me a tie now. I'm 17, you know? And so it was interesting. So I got to meet a lot of cool people, a lot of different ethnicities, a lot of different people. And already Montreal's so diverse that, you know what I mean? It was cool. It really opened up my eyes to a lot of stuff too.
And it's funny that you say that. So my next question would be, avec le background que tu as et ton héritage, c'est quoi ta perception par rapport à la réalité que, ou à la place, si je pourrais dire, que les pères, ils ont ici au Québec en tant qu'immigrants?
Ah, c'est difficile, tu sais, parce qu'un père immigrant, pour moi, c'est pas moi. C'est mon père. Parce que c'est lui qui était le vrai immigrant. Il est rentré ici à 20 ans, en 1967, si je suis correct. Tu sais, à 20 ans, le plus vieux fils de sa famille. Puis il avait ses examens d'université dans 10 jours où il prenait ce billet parce qu'il y avait un ami qui faisait le trek. Il a pris le billet, il est rentré. Puis je pense des fois, tu sais, c'est lui qui a rentré ses frères. Puis après ça, ses sœurs ont été mariées à des gars en Angleterre. Puis c'est comme un spiderweb qui a été créé de ça. Puis c'est lui qui a rentré ici, qui a travaillé, tu sais, à faire le ballet à Moïse ou, tu sais, différentes choses. Puis en grandissant, avoir 5-10 différentes compagnies. Il y en a qui ont réussi. Il y en avait qui n'ont pas réussi, tu sais. Puis that's the struggle of an immigrant to me, is he's the guy who had to raise kids with a past world mentality, a mentality from his country. I grew up here. I was born in Ville-Saint-Laurent. You know what I mean? So yeah, I grew up as an immigrant, you know, faced bullying, whatever, racism, this, that, as we went along in life. But I didn't just have the cojones to up my life at 20 years old, fly across the world to a country I didn't know with next to no cash and make it. I think back to that, and then open businesses, failed businesses, open businesses again. That, to me, is the true immigrant story. And I mean, there's failures in that. You know what I mean? There were times where things were rough, especially as a businessman. That's true. You know, and that's one of the things I realized why I didn't go into business. Because my dad had built up a pretty good network of connections. You could try this, export this, or fix, you know what I mean? And he offered things at times. I was like, no. I'm working for the bank. I put on my top. I was making like $7.85 an hour. But to me, that was
a lot. Back then it was a lot.
But to me, that was guaranteed money. I got to wear a tie. People thought I was, you know, important. And then I continued that a little bit in the financial field. And then even with the law firm, you know, I remember my neighbor right next door. We used to throw parties and have friends over and go to all hours of the night. And then one day she came over and my wife was doing something outside. She asked my wife, she's like, oh yeah, what does your husband do? She's like, oh, il travaille pour un cabinet d'avocat. Oh, the jaw dropped. Vraiment? Wow. Okay, you know what? It means nothing, but un cabinet d'avocat.
It looks good.
Yeah, and I mean, it was fun. I learned a lot, but to have your own business and to work so hard at something that's almost like another kid. So you're you know what I mean? It's being a father again in a different way. Mm-hmm. So it's been interesting.
Okay, thank you.
So talking about business, so how did this come into your life?
Oh wow, that's a crazy story. So while I was working for the immigration law firm, my dad had a friend who wanted to get into organic teas, specifically more kind of like a David's tea at retail, you know, kind of take that model. And he knew my dad through clothing because that's what he had done previously. That he had really good connections overseas in India and China, other countries. So he asked him to kind of start sourcing teas. So my dad told me, you know, he's like, I'm going to get into tea. I'm like, okay. I'm like, first of all, we're Indian. You guys have been drinking the same brand of tea since I was like 4. Like, what? But now you're going to go beat Tetley? Because that's what, he's like, no, I'm thinking more you know, the herbal teas and fruits and the stuff that I'm like, okay, that could work. You know, I'm like, okay. That's interesting. But, you know, so then that went away. And then 6 months later, he calls me and he's like, can you, what are you doing Wednesday? I'm like, nothing. You need to come by the house, move something out of the basement or something. He's like, no, come by the office. Office? What office? You've been retired, semi-retired for nearly a decade, right? He's like, no, come by my office. I'm like, okay, why? He's like, the tea. He's like, I told you, I'm doing tea. I'm like, okay, well, what do you have to do at the office? He's like, well, the container's coming. Container of what? Tea. I told you, I'm doing tea. He had 55,000 boxes of tea coming. Wow. He had already designed 4 flavors, put it all together, brought it in. And so then I immediately was like, oh my God. Like, because at the end of the day, like, we've always treated our family money and what we're doing as a family. Yeah. So I was like, whoa, okay, this is a power move he's doing here. Let me look at. So I started to get involved with the marketing and a little bit in the sales. And it's, you know, I've been in sales my whole life. I've always kind of crushed sales. That's what I did. Mm-hmm. Man, I made phone calls for a month and a half. And like, I thought like, hey, pick up the phone like I do everywhere else. Metro didn't answer my phone call. You know?
It's good that you asked that, because that was my next question. If we could find your products like in metros or IGAs.
Currently, we are in about 60 different locations across Montreal. Okay. Mainly like Supermarché Père, Bonanza, Health Tree, Cavallaros. Like I said, there's about 60 of them. We currently are not in Metro, so Metro, si vous voyez ça, s'il vous plaît, appelez-moi. But the reality is, I mean, we're working with all of our partners. It's just a joke. I've met with Metro. They're fantastic people. And they're actually putting a very, very big emphasis on Quebec homegrown products, okay. Especially now with the pandemic. I don't know if you guys know, they started a panier bleu to try and reinforce Quebec products. And I can, you know, Metro, Sobeys, Loblaws, they've all worked really hard to try and bring Quebec products to the forefront as much as they possibly can, so they should be commended for that. I mean, every company gets slammed for something. This is one of those things where, you know, there are a lot of companies in Quebec that will need this help. It's been a crazy year.
That's true. That's definitely true. And it's funny that you said that, like, you know, avec le panier bleu, tout ça, parce que ma prochaine question, c'était un peu plus, c'est quoi les défis, tu sais, pour un entrepreneur qui vend du thé? Tu sais, je me dis, bon, si ton thé n'est pas dans tous les supermarchés ou quoi que ce soit, c'est quoi les plus gros défis que tu rencontres dans cette business-là?
La chose, c'est que comme entrepreneur d'un brand ou de quelque chose de même, il y a toujours un défi. Mon plus grand problème, c'est qu'on est une compagnie, une petite compagnie familiale. C'est moi, mon père, mon frère, qui fait plus ou moins les 1000 choses qui doivent être faites. So, you know, on a un site web. Mais est-ce que j'aimerais que le site web, ça serait meilleur? Oui. On a un plan social, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok maintenant, tu sais. Mais je peux pas poster 5 ou 10 fois sur chaque plateforme. C'est une question de temps. Entre-temps, je dois appeler Metro pour essayer de rentrer l'été sur leur chose. Comme ça, c'est ça. Pour moi, le plus grand défi, c'est vraiment l'allocation de temps. Parce qu'il y a toujours quelque chose à faire. Puis, en plus, j'ai 3 gars. 3 gars qui, pour de temps, faisaient leurs études à la maison. Avec une femme qui travaille pour Concordia, qui faisait son temps plein à la maison. Ça, pour moi, je suis chanceux, même. C'est mon business. Il est ici, près de ma maison. Je peux rentrer, sortir, faire... Il y a de la flexibilité là-dedans, mais en même temps, ça n'arrête jamais. 2 in the morning, call China. Weekend, try and create 3 posts so you can post them on Monday. You know, watching the Super Bowl, thinking, oh, I need to make an ad. You know, so ça arrête vraiment jamais. But at the same time, it's kind of what drives me. The reason I left the law firm was because I'd done everything I could there. I held the sales records. I managed the teams. It was a cool job, but there was nothing left there, you know, other than money, which is, you know, fantastic. But if I'm the type of person who needs something different, which now owning your own business, it's always something different. But you got to get used to living in a world where nothing is set in stone, nothing is ready for you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Everything changes all the time. So for somebody who has anxiety or who's anxious, it can be very crushing. You know, luckily I don't have a lot of that. I mean, everybody gets a little worried sometimes, but I'm always a glass half full kind of guy. Like, it'll work out. You're not dead. You didn't go bankrupt. Keep going. You know?
It's a good mentality to have, and the fact that you're mentioning it, Ben, on se connaît aussi, là, tu sais, je vais avoir 3 enfants, puis là, t'es en train de dire ça, puis là, je suis en train d'imaginer ma vie bientôt. Alors...
Ça va être intéressant. I'll be laughing all the way. I'm going to be like, Valdo.
Ouais, c'est un beau challenge, mais en tout cas, I'll drop 1 or 2 at your house, so we'll be good.
Well, you know, I was wondering, because my wife noticed this, that with the 3rd kid, sometimes when you told your friends or told somebody, they'd just be like, wow, really? Oh, that's nice. Like, ooh.
Oh, you got nice? I didn't get nice, mais moi, c'est, pour de vrai, why? C'est comme, est-ce que ça va bien? Pourquoi vous faites le 3e enfant? Comme, what's wrong with you guys?
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's like, ooh, really?
Yeah.
So
En
it's
même
intéressant, you know?
en même temps, ça dépend. Tu sais, comme j'ai déjà mentionné dans certaines émissions, puis je le dis dans mon entourage en général, I believe that kids are a blessing. So si Dieu nous donne l'opportunité d'avoir des enfants, tu sais, we count our blessing and that's it, that's all. So.
I absolutely 100% agree with you until I see my grocery bill from 3 boys at this age. Scared. Like, I'm just thinking, like, what?
And they're not all teenagers.
That's what I'm worried about. I'm gonna have to move to a farm and have my own cows. I can't, like, ça va pas marcher. I don't know, man. It's gonna be serious.
Wow. So, something that we found interesting and we noticed on your website is that you have a product line. I don't know if we can call it like that. It's called the Signature Organic.
Yeah, it's our Premium Organic Signature Tins. So I think probably what you're referring to is we ended up, again, there's a weird story behind this one too. Our offices are on La Brosse. Directly across from us is a CIU, an office run by the CIUSS, the West de l'Île, Quebec, where they try and readapt and give, I guess, employment or something to do for individuals on the autism spectrum. And so the guy who helps run that office, his name's Steve. He actually is one of the caregivers with these guys on a day-to-day basis. I just, summertime, you happen to, want to stand outside of the office and hang out. Started talking to Steve, and he was telling me what he does and things like that. And he was telling me, he's like, oh, you're Indian. He's like, my cousin was married to an Indian guy. I'm like, okay, great, thanks. I'm probably,
So my cousin.
And he's like, yeah, he was a really cool guy. We used to drink all the time, blah, blah. Sharda was a good guy. I looked at him, I said, Sharda? My dad's best friend was his cousin's ex-husband out of nowhere. Wow. So I'm like, so I brought my dad out here, and then he's like, yeah, and they stay, because he knows the brother and half the family, and this guy was like my dad's best friend for like 20 years. So out of nowhere, we had this cool connection. So then we started talking about how maybe, because they do different campaigns for, Alcatel or the Salon de la Femme coming up. And so we had these tins we were bringing in that needed to have tea packed in them, because our tea was being packed in one place and the tins were coming from somewhere else. So I spoke to him, and he said, yeah, our guys, this is exactly the type of stuff we do. So we checked out their warehouse and the way they were operating. It was really, really cool. Like, they had these guys really working well and very, very sanitary, and the guys loved it. Like, the thing is that, like, when I first went, I was like, ooh, I don't know, like, it feels kind of sweatshoppy when I first heard it. Mm-hmm. And then when I went there, and like, these guys love it. They're like, hey, now they all know me. They're Jib, and like, they're like high-fiving me. And so, and for us, big thing with our company is to really give back. Okay. So we've worked in the U.S. with like Gilda's Club, now with the CIUSS the West. Partageons-nous, is that it?
Partage Action.
Partage Action, and also Table of Hope. Okay. So we've been able to do quite a few things, and we're always open to it. Like, even with all of our vendors, the first thing I tell them is that if you have something charitable that we can help with, whether it's our own manpower, whether it's tea, whether, like for like the different shelters and homes in the city and things like that, we're always open, especially, like now, what is it today? Minus 20. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. It's rough out there. And on top of it, more and more people now, more than ever, are feeling it. You know what I mean? the West Island Food Bank is also right next to my office, right next to that CIUSS office, and I see the influx, man. There's car after car after car. Especially being in the West Island, we don't think of it as much, I guess. But yeah, what you did for a very, very long time, right? And still advocate to this day. But I now I see it, you know, and I feel for people, man. It's not easy, you know. We've had our ups and downs. When COVID first hit, my biggest retailers shut down. They were like, if you have purchase orders that we issued, wipe them out. Oh. If whatever you shipped us on 30-day terms, it's now 90 days. We're shutting down our head offices. You can't talk to anybody. See you soon. Bye. It was like that from December 23rd to about mid-February. We didn't know if we had a business. If we were not in Canada with the supports that the government gave as far as wage subsidies, as far as rent subsidies and things like that, like I have a lot of buddies and friends in the US who have brands and things like that, and I think, how did they survive, man? We were like, if we didn't have that infrastructure in place, like all other things, I mean, I hate being taxed where we're taxed. Right. Absolutely, always have. But the social network that we have in this country, in this province even, can always be improved, absolutely. And, you know, that's a whole other topic, but there's still something there. Yeah, that's true. And it's important, you know, it makes a big, big difference when you actually need it. It's just like insurance. You don't think of it, but when you need it, it's like, God, thank God. My beautiful Canadian passport, you know, mon fleur de lis, like it's important at that point. So.
Oh, c'est vrai. Wow. Mais tu sais, Shiv, comme, en tout cas, je te connais, mais je pense que le fait que tu sois venu nous parler, tu sais, m'a appris à connaître un peu plus sur ta personne, tu sais, un peu plus sur l'homme que tu es, sur les racines que tu représentes. Alors, mais merci beaucoup, premièrement, d'avoir pris le temps de t'être déplacé, de partager avec nous. Et puis, de la part de la production, de la part de Histoire de Père, keep doing what you do. Vous avez entendu Métro, il a besoin de votre support, Métro. Alors, mais pour toutes les personnes qui voudraient avoir les informations de Shiv, c'est sûr qu'à la fin de l'émission, on va mettre ses coordonnées où ce que vous pouvez aller chercher son thé. Et je ne sais pas si tu voulais dire un dernier mot pour la fin.
Non, vraiment, just, you know, everybody, tout le monde, please try and be good to each other. It's tough times. That's why I support what I do. It's clean living, healthy drinking, warm beverages. Keep yourself, your people warm and close to you, and I mean, we'll get through this.
Merci beaucoup, Shiv.
Absolutely, like really, I appreciate the fact that you help people.
I mean, it's one of those things where if you're gonna do, like, I mean, when we started this, I knew nothing about herbal tea. I didn't, you know what I mean? I was trying to sell a product. Yeah. But then I realized the benefits. What we're doing is we're providing people something where they can ingest something without any artificial flavors or perfumes. Almost everything we drink and eat is fake. It's true. People don't realize, and they get sick because of it, because every person might not have an allergy, but it's a little sensitivity to things. I figured that out with my mom. She's got psoriatic arthritis. She's diabetic. I myself suffer from gout. These are all triggered by stuff we put in us. They say, it's your genes. No, man, it's not. That's true. People were allergic to things when things were natural. If you're allergic to a peanut is a relatively natural thing. That makes sense. We've created a whole category of things we could be allergic to that nobody tests for or looks at. And our teas is just one way to help people take in something clean that they don't have to worry about. You don't have to read the label. As long as you're not allergic to the 2 flavors on the front of what we provide, you're good to go.
All right, so thank you very much. Merci à tous ceux qui nous suivent semaine après semaine. On adore votre support, vos partages, vos likes. On sent l'énergie de plus en plus sur les réseaux et on apprécie. Et on aimerait remercier également nos commanditaires. Donc, semaine après semaine, Chaz qui nous habille, on apprécie votre support. Et Gaetano Chiara, conseiller financier. Vraiment, merci, on apprécie le support. Et à la prochaine.